America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, the country where you can legally buy an assault rifle before you can legally drink a beer. But while the US prides itself on freedom, it also has some of the weirdest, most random bans in the world. It's a place where you can walk into a store and legally purchase a flamethrower. But if you try to bring in a chocolate egg from Canada, you might find yourself in trouble with the law. It's a country where you can own a tiger in Texas, but in some places, you can't even buy certain types of cheese. So today, we're going to explore some of the craziest, most surprising, and most ridiculous things that are banned in America. Things that are completely legal everywhere else in the world. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll either be laughing or questioning whether America is truly the land of the free. After all, Kinder Surprise Eggs, America's most dangerous chocolate. Let's start with something innocent. Something every child around the world has enjoyed for decades, a chocolate egg. More specifically, Kinder Surprise Eggs, those delicious hollow chocolate eggs with a small toy inside. They've been a childhood favorite in Europe, Canada, Asia, and South America for years. But in the United States, completely illegal. That's right. In the country where you can buy a literal grenade launcher, Kinder eggs are considered too dangerous. The reason? A 1938 FDA law that bans any food with a non-edible object inside. The US government decided that a tiny plastic toy inside a chocolate egg was a choking hazard and banned the entire product. Meanwhile, countries like Germany, France, Italy, and even Mexico have been eating Kinder eggs for decades, and somehow their children have managed to survive. But here's where it gets even crazier. Try bringing a Kinder egg into the US, and you might actually get in trouble with the law. In 2011 alone, over 60,000 Kinder eggs were confiscated by US Customs from travelers trying to bring them into the country. And in one of the most absurd cases ever, a couple from Seattle was detained at the Canadian border for trying to bring in 6 Kinder eggs. Yes, you heard that right. They were detained. Border agents actually pulled them aside and told them that each egg carried a $2,500 fine. That's $15,000 in fines for trying to bring chocolate into America. Meanwhile, you can legally buy a bazooka in some states. Makes perfect sense, right? Lawn darts, when backyard games became deadly weapons. Now let's take a trip back to the 1980s, a time when kids rode their bikes without helmets, seatbelts were optional, and safety regulations were basically just suggestions. And nothing represents that era better than lawn darts. If you don't know what lawn darts are, imagine a regular dart, the kind you throw at a dartboard. Now, make it 10 times bigger, add a sharp metal tip, and throw it high into the air over a group of children. That was the game. The goal was to throw these giant spear-like darts into a plastic ring on the ground. But as you can imagine, the game often turned into something closer to a medieval battlefield. Between 1978 and 1986, over 6,100 emergency room visits were directly linked to lawn dart injuries. And tragically, in 1987, a 7-year-old girl was killed when a lawn dart pierced her skull. That's when the US government finally banned them in 1988. But here's where it gets interesting. In Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe, lawn darts were never banned outright. Instead, they were redesigned to be safer and are still sold today. So while Americans were forced to say goodbye to their deadly backyard game, the rest of the world just made a few changes and kept playing. Real absinthe, the alcohol that turned artists into lunatics. Absinthe is one of the most mysterious and controversial drinks in history. It's a strong, green-colored alcohol that was wildly popular in the 1800s and early 1900s, especially among artists like Van Gogh, Picasso, and Hemingway. But for a long time, people believed that absinthe wasn't just alcohol, it was a hallucinogen. Lawmakers in the US claimed that one sip of absinthe could turn a normal person into a violent lunatic, and in 1912, the US government completely banned it. For nearly a century, Americans weren't allowed to drink real absinthe. Meanwhile, in countries like France, Switzerland, and the Czech Republic, people never stopped drinking it. And here's the best part. Modern science later proved that absinthe doesn't actually cause hallucinations. The entire ban was based on misinformation. Oops. In 2007, the US finally lifted the ban, but even today, only certain types of absinthe are allowed. Meanwhile, in Europe, people are still enjoying the real thing. French cheeses. Because America hates flavor, Americans love cheese. The average American eats about 40 pounds of it every year. But did you know that some of the world's best cheeses are banned in the US? It all comes down to one rule. Any cheese made from unpasteurized milk must be aged for at least 60 days. That means classic French cheeses like Roquefort, Brie de Meaux, and Reblochon are all banned in the United States. Why? Because the FDA is worried about bacteria. Meanwhile, people in France, Italy, and Switzerland have been eating these cheeses for centuries, and they're doing just fine. But the craziest part, in 2013, Homeland Security actually raided a man's house in California. His crime? Smuggling in illegal French cheese. They confiscated 111 pounds of mimolette, a French cheese that uses tiny cheese mites to develop flavor. Yes, the US government actually conducted a cheese raid because clearly cheese is the biggest threat to national security. Is America really the land of the free? So let's recap. Chocolate eggs? Too dangerous. French cheese? Banned immediately. Throwing metal spears at kids? Took years to ban. Owning a flamethrower? Perfectly fine in 48 states. At this point, it's hard not to wonder, is America really the land of the free, or just the land of really weird bans? While other countries are enjoying their cheese, chocolate, and backyard games, America has decided that some of the most harmless things are illegal. But hey, at least we can still buy tanks and flamethrowers, right? So what do you think? Which of these bans surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you're watching this from outside the US, just know, you're living in a country where you can legally eat a Kinder Egg. Consider yourself lucky.